Hello everyone. I am very glad that you are with me on. My name is Julia, and you are in the studio, knitting in style. In this video, I want to suggest that you knit with me this wonderful cowl. It is knitted in English ribbing in the form of braids or twists, which they are also called. In the previous workshop, we already knitted a hat using this pattern. Here we knitted in the round. The link to the workshop will be below the video. And now I invite you to knit the cowl back and forth, so that we have a complete set. The total length of the cowl came out to about 120 centimeters. So if you like this pattern, let's get knitting. I will be using yarn called white leopard. Here, there are 180 meters per 100 grams. 30% mohair, 60% Australian cashmere, and 10% acrylic. If you like my color, here is the number. I will be knitting with needles number 4.5. We will also need a needle for temporarily transferring stitches. Since we will be doing the braiding of twists, we will use a large pin. A needle with a blunt end to sew later. With the cowl, and to hide the tails, a crochet hook may be needed. To hide threads at the end of knitting, scissors, a tape measure. A row counter might be needed. A notebook with a pen for calculations and a calculator. Before we knit our cowl, we will knit a swatch. As usual, using the main pattern. Here, in English ribbing, I knitted with needles number 4.5. Let's calculate how many stitches we need to cast on to knit further in a straight line, our cowl. So, I had 24 stitches in my sample. This is about 13 centimeters. I measured with a measuring tape. Next, we will find out how many stitches we have per centimeter. We write stitches under stitches, centimeters under centimeters. This is the proportion we set up. Next, we will calculate. We drew a diagonal, like this, mentally. We multiply the two known numbers, and divide by one unknown from the two. That is, we multiply 24 by 1, and divide by 13. We get 1.85 stitches. So, in 1 centimeter there is that amount of stitches. The repeat of this pattern consists of 12 stitches. We are roughly determining what the width of our cowl will be. I have about 30 centimeters. I want to, for example. I take 30 centimeters and multiply by the obtained number of stitches per centimeter. I multiply 30 by 1.85 and get that number. Next, I divide this number by 12, the repeat of one pattern. That is, the number of stitches in one pattern. I get 4.6. It results in 4 full repeats. I take 4 and multiply by 12, the number of stitches in one repeat. I get 48 stitches. That is, I get the number of stitches, which corresponds to 4 repeats, to 4 patterns. The resulting number should divide evenly by 24. So, I will cast on 48 stitches and add 2 edge stitches. Or, I will have 4 full repeats. So, with size 415 needles, I will cast on 48 stitches plus 2 edge stitches. That is, I am now casting on 50 stitches in the usual universal way. If someone doesn't know how to cast on, please follow the link above. There I explain everything in detail. I cast on 50 stitches, take out 1 needle, and start knitting with turning rows. I will knit with the grandmother's stitches. In the first row we set the edge stitch. We knit the knit stitch. I knit through the back loop. Next we knit the purl stitch. I do it through the front loop. That means we will alternate knit and purl stitches. That means knit in a 1x1 ribbing. You can knit with classic stitches, but I will use grandmother's stitches. Thus, we knit until the end of the row. At the end, I have a purl stitch. We also knit the last edge stitch as a purl grandmother's stitch. We turn the knitting. Now we will knit the second row and directly work the English ribbing. So we slip the edge stitch. Next we have a knit stitch. We always knit the knit stitch through the stitch of the lower row. That is, the right needle goes not into the top half stitch, but underneath, there is a stitch, a knit stitch. We insert the needle there, and knit the knit stitch. We knit the purl stitch as usual, as a purl. The knit stitch below. So this variation of knitting the English ribbing is slightly different. It has no yarn overs. Here, you simply need to knit into the stitch of the lower row, only the knit stitches. We knit the purl stitch as usual. The second to last stitch is a purl stitch. We usually knit the purl stitch, and also knit the edge stitch as a purl grandmother's stitch. We turn the knitting. We begin knitting the third row. We slip the edge stitch, and then we will knit the third row and all subsequent rows just like we did with the previous second row. That is, we will knit the knit stitches into the stitch of the previous row, down below. The knit, and we knit the purl as usual. Here we have the knit stitch. We knit down here. And the purl into the back loop, by the way, if you are knitting in the round, not in rows like I do, but in a circle, then the knitting of the English ribbing is a bit different there. Therefore, I recommend that you watch the masterclass on the hat. Here's the link on top, where I explain how to knit this pattern specifically in the round. There are some different nuances there. So, this is our third row. We need to knit 10 rows, and in the 11th row, we will do the crossover. And do not forget, as usual, we slip the first edge stitch, and we knit the last edge stitch as a purl. We knit the 11th row, we slip the edge stitch onto the right needle, and we need to transfer the next 6 stitches to an additional needle. And leave these stitches in front of the work. Next, we will knit 6 stitches in English ribbing as usual, knit the knits into the back of the lower stitch. Purl, regular and purl. Now we need to knit those stitches from the additional needle. Knit them also in English ribbing. You can move these stitches to the left needle and then knit. But I will try to knit them directly from the additional needle. Here, our last stitch was a purl. And here's the first knit stitch. All correct. We knit the knit stitch into the back of the stitch. Purl, as usual, purl. We've knitted. This is what the crossover looks like. Next, we knit 12 stitches in English ribbing. We are done with that. Now we need to repeat the same thing one more time. Slip 6 stitches, leaving them in front. Next, knit 6 stitches in English rib. Then, 6 stitches from the extra needle. And then, 12 regular stitches. We repeated it one more time. And we knit the last one as a purl stitch facing us. There are 2 crossings here. Next, we knit 11 rows straight in English rib without crossings. And in the 12th row, we will do the crossing again. Just a little differently. We knitted 11 rows straight. Now, we knit the 23rd row. At the beginning of the row, we slip the edge stitch. And we continue knitting 12 stitches in English rib. I've already knitted that. The next 6 stitches, we will transfer to the extra needle. And this time, we will leave them behind. Next, we knit 6 stitches in English rib. As usual, we have knitted, and then we knit on. From the extra needle these 6 stitches, also following the pattern. You can also transfer them to the left needle. You can knit them straight from the extra needle. We had the last purl stitch here. From the extra needle, we knit the first knit stitch. Then the purl stitch and so on. We have knitted 6 stitches from the extra needle. And then we repeat all the same. We knit 12 stitches in English ribbing. Next, we place 6 stitches on a spare needle behind the work. After that, we knit 6 stitches in English ribbing. And at the end, we knit 6 stitches from the spare needle. We have 2 such repetitions. I knitted it once. I need to knit it one more time. Our last stitch is a purl stitch. That's it. We have knitted 23 rows. Next, we will knit 11 rows straight. This means that our next row will be counted as the first. We knit 11 rows straight. In ribbing, and in the 12th row, we will make a crossing. The same as we did here. Our first crossing. After this, we again knit 11 rows straight. And in the 12th row, we make such a crossing. As in our 23rd row, our second crossing. That's it, and this way we will alternate crossings. And between them, we will knit 11 rows straight, so crossings are in every 12th row. Here, I have knitted a bit and want to give you a tip. You can mark the side where the crossing is made. Since we have 2 types of crossing and we make both on the same side, on the side where we have the edge, with such transverse threads and a braid on the reverse side, mark it with a marker, and then it will be easier to navigate which side will have the next crossing. And for convenience you can use a row counter. So we knit until the desired length of the cowl. Well, I have used up all my yarn, washed my unfinished cowl. I even stretched it a little since the yarn is a bit loose. It turned out to be about 11 centimeters long. Now, I will show you how I will close and shrink the seam. So, we leave a fairly long thread. We pull it into a needle with a blunt end. I stopped on the side where I had the crossings. Where I hung the marker, that is, this is my front side. Here my thread comes out, and it turns out we haven't completed 1 row to the crossing. That is, I should have knitted 1 row after my second crossing here. In fact, I knitted 3 rows, since I had some thread left. I felt a bit reluctant to leave it, but after our last second crossing, which I showed, we need to knit 1 row and close the seam. How will I close it? Here my thread comes out. So, I take the needle and insert it into the edge stitch away from myself. With this movement, we do not yet drop the thread. Now we take the opposite side, closed, where we do not cross or twist it in any way, so that it connects in a circle. Yes. We look for the edge stitch here. Here is our first edge stitch going in a knit way. On the side here, we inserted the needle away from ourselves into this edge stitch. We will already be from above. Inserting the needle down towards ourselves like this, and pulling the thread through. We pulled it through, and then again, with the needle towards ourselves into the same edge stitch we already pulled through. Where we have an open stitch towards ourselves, we remove this stitch from the needle. This is the tail from the beginning of our knitting. That's it. This is how we close the edge stitches. Now, I will close the seam a little. Then, I will show you how this is done. So that you immediately see the seam. I sewed a little. This is what the seam looks like. At the junction, here it seems like the knit stitch continues, and the seam becomes less noticeable. Here on the reverse side, the same. Now I will show you how I do this. So look, everything here is very simple. If we have a knit stitch, then we initially insert the needle moving towards us. From the back, we pull the thread through the loop towards us. We do not drop it yet. We also look for a knit stitch on the opposite side. So, we sew the knit stitch to the knit stitch, the purl stitch to the purl stitch, like this, in pairs. So, we search for a knit stitch on this side. Here is the knit stitch. We insert from right to left behind the first knit stitch. Our working thread should always be under the needle on this side. We pull it through again. We place the thread under the needle. We insert into this open stitch away from us. And we drop it from the needle, that's it. Here we have it. We have knitted such a knit stitch. Next, we sew the purl stitch. We need to sew 2 purl stitches together. Here is our purl stitch. If we have a purl stitch, we initially insert the needle moving away from us until we drop it from the needle, looking for a purl stitch on this side. We insert it here to sew the knit stitches. The next one is a purl stitch from the inside. It is our knit stitch. From the inside, we look for this little braid and pull the needle through the first stitch, also moving from right to left. The yarn is always under the needle. We place the yarn under the needle again, and this time we insert into the open purl stitch moving towards us and drop it from the needle. Next, we have a knit stitch again. We need to sew it to the knit stitch. So initially, we take the needle and insert it moving towards us. We do not drop it from the needle. We look for a knit stitch here. Here it is. We pull the thread from right to left. The thread is always under the needle for us. And now we push the needle away from ourselves and drop it from the needle. Next we have the purl stitch. For the purl stitch, we initially insert the needle toward ourselves. On that side we look for the purl stitch. Here it is. From the opposite side, we look for the knit stitch and moving from right to left, pull the thread and now into the open purl stitch, initially away from ourselves and then toward ourselves, and drop it from the needle. Here, we only need to remember one rule. When sewing knit stitches, we initially insert the needle toward ourselves here from the opposite side, always from right to left, and then away from ourselves, dropping it from the needle. And for the purl stitch, vice versa, first away from ourselves. Then we look for the purl stitch from the opposite side, always moving from right to left. And then moving toward ourselves and dropping it from the needle. That's it. In this way, we will sew to the end of the row. We have sewn the last 2 purl stitches. And since the last were purls, we will sew the remaining edge stitches as knits. First, moving toward ourselves. We pull the thread, then we look for the edge stitch right here. Here it is, and we insert into the edge stitch moving from right. To left and then, already moving away from ourselves, as with a knit stitch, and pull out the needle. This way, we closed our seam. And now the thread just needs to be hidden. This is how the seam looks. All threads are hidden on the back side. Totally unnoticed, I would say. After washing, I think the stitches will open up a little, and it will be even better. Therefore, we just need to wash it, stretch it as needed, and that's all, our snood is ready. Thank you for watching. I hope everything worked out for you. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Of course, subscribe. Hit the bell so you receive notifications about new masterclasses. I wish you all the best. Easy stitches and see you in the next workshop.